Okay. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Talent Fix podcast, where we're talking to leaders within the HR field. And I'm delighted in this episode to be joined by Vanessa Wainwright, founder and CEO of Abodoo. Just before we go any further, it's such an interesting company name, Vanessa. Do you want to tell us where that came from?
Sure, Barry, thank you for having me. Abodoo, as I was saying, it's a very mission-based name. It's our core belief that everyone should have access to learning, education and work, the do, and ultimately to have a home, abode.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're continuing our series on skills. And you have a really interesting company, Vanessa, which really focuses on skills and shifting us all to kind of a skills first approach. So how are companies successfully shifting to a skills first hiring approach, and what are the biggest barriers that you've seen?
Okay. I think what we're seeing a lot in companies is there are a few people within the organization that want to champion a skills first approach, but not everyone is bought in. And it's like any evolution. I've been in recruitment and education for a very long time. And, you know, if you are championing something new, you need to get everyone bought in. And what we're seeing with companies is that you might have one team in particular becoming very aware that it's no longer okay to just buy these huge learning licenses and hope that your individual team members will kind of figure out the skills they need, and then hope that your internal hiring managers will know those skills that they've acquired make sense to their team. The reality is what happens is people don't take the right course, or if they do, they get despondent because they haven't been recognized or rewarded, and then they're not retained. It's like we talk about the 3 R's, and they leave. And so having a highly skilled worker is probably the most valuable commodity a company has today. And the companies that we see putting in a strategy or a framework to really start recognizing skills and creating these pathways that are individual to every employee. It doesn't matter what level. It doesn't matter if you're a graduate, you're a leader, or you're in the C-suite, that they're accessing the skills they need to fill a gap that they personally have, and they're being rewarded for that and recognized. They're being retained. And so we're seeing huge efficiencies happening for companies that are getting ahead of it. But the critical element is there has to be a common skills language. Everyone needs to be on the same page to make this happen.
Okay, so let's dive into that a bit, because that skill. I'm chair of the Dublin Regional Skills Forum currently, and one of the challenges that we see is that, you know, there are many different taxonomies and many different languages that exist when it comes to skills. So we've got the World Economic Forum skills taxonomy, and then we've got ESCO, and then we've got platforms like LinkedIn, and you know, there's a massive difference in the languages that people are using. I think I saw, you know, on one platform, accountant listed as a skill. So how can we fix that problem, and how is Abodoo helping with that?
It's a massive problem, and the thing is, it's not even just the governments and the national agencies that are building skills taxonomies. Universities are doing it now, and big companies and corporates. And I get it. I mean, for some of the companies we work with, they're creating it so there's this internal language between recruitment, HR, learning, up to the C-suite, that everyone's speaking the same language. But unless that taxonomy connects and ingests into others on a global playing field, bias creeps in, inaccurate and mismatching. Like, we've all experienced the inbox job alert. You get excited and you open it up and you see director of something that's completely irrelevant to your skill set. And you think, how did I even receive this? It's because of these multiple skills taxonomies not correlating with your CV. And the other thing is CVs that we're operating. I can't believe, like, I had my first recruitment agency in my 20s. And at the time, we used CVs and we printed them and we put them in the filing cupboard, A to Z. And we don't have the filing cupboard anymore, but we're still using CVs, which means that we're still using that skills database that was created for the CV that is not connecting with the world of work now and the AI algorithms that are now doing the screening. So what we have done with our customers and clients is that we've built this skills AI. It's our own learning language model, and it enables us to host 55,000 skills approximately in hard, human, and transversal skills. We can ingest any. We're working with ONET in America, ESCO in Europe, any of the major taxonomies, but this moving exchange enables us, like if you're translating English to Italian, we can translate. So we can ensure that whatever skills are in a CV or whatever skills are in a course outline, they can correlate to a job. And it just makes the role of HR leadership so much easier from the perspective of where do I invest my money in recruitment, education, and how do I report up to the CEO on the skills gap and how we're effectively closing it.
No, for sure. And I think, so I was speaking at a conference last week, and one of the points we were making is kind of how quickly the landscape is evolving. And when the surveys that we see from leaders, HR leaders, is that skills have, I think, something like 60% of employers in one survey found that the core skills had changed over the past 2 years and expected them to change again over the following 2 years. So it's an incredibly it's a rapidly evolving landscape, rapidly changing landscape. How do you keep up with the pace of change? Because you talk about 55,000 skills, but that's obviously ever changing and evolving. And how do you keep up with kind of new skills that are coming on stream?
It's a really good question. And the advantage that we have is we actually started in the educational space. So we started working with the institutions and the vocational educators on what were the skills that they were looking to teach in their courses, and then transitioned to industry to understand what they're needing. So now, when we're working with companies, we've developed this framework called the Core Skills First system. And this enables us to help a HR leader put in a system, a framework that starts with the common skills language, and then using a tool called Skills Lens, where it's dynamically updating on the latest skills needs from reports that are being put out, taxonomy pushes, job advertising, all centralized. And I think the key is, maybe up until now, you really have to be a data analyst to get this information and make sense of it. Whereas tools like Skills Lens that we use and other tools, they make it so easy. So even if you are a leader of HR and you just want to quickly go in and see a snapshot, okay, in engineering, within the domain of green, what are the skills? What educational courses are covering that right now? And where are the gaps? That data is now available. And then taking that information and ingesting it into a system like the Core Skills First system means that you have everyone within the business speaking the same language and having the same objective. With other tools that we use, like the Skills Passport, that's where it sort of really starts to dynamically change things.
No, brilliant. Okay, and I love the idea of the Skills Passport. It's so important. And with AI kind of transforming roles, what skills do you think are going to be most in demand in the coming kind of 5 years?
If I'm to break it down across 3 areas, I would say on the hard skills, it's going to be around AI and digital, and then followed very closely by green sustainability. And it's why we focused in that area. And it won't just be courses from higher education. It's going to be micro-credentials. But it's very, very important that gone are the days where we'll go back to just having a CV and a certificate. Now we really need to find a way to stack these skills effectively and recognize and accredit them. So it just makes the role of the recruiter so much easier when they know that there's a stamped skill that someone has or skill set that someone has. The second is around the human skills. I mean, it goes without shadow of a doubt that you're going to need to be a critical thinker, the ability to communicate, the ability to think outside of the box in terms of the number of solutions that are coming. And again, that soft skill is moving up the chain of skills importance within organizations, because as AI starts taking the hard skills and I guess making those very mainstream, what's going to set us apart? It's going to be our leadership, our creative thinking, and so on. Yeah. And then the third element is lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of a generation where you did your degree, you might do a master's. If you really were going to push the boat out, you do a PhD.
Yeah.
But like, let's face it, I think most people in their 40s and 50s now are really looking at their skill set and going, okay, I have a gap. If industry is going to change so rapidly, what do I need to do to fill that gap? And to be able to just embrace that idea of lifelong learning. But I believe that industry and business owners and leaders need to do a far better job of helping individuals identify their skills gap and then serve them with a personalized solution.
Okay, no, 100%. So let's talk about the idea of skills gaps. And you know, when we're recruiting for companies, and when companies come to us looking for staff, you know, it's always it's usually a question of kind of firefighting, and you know, you need bums on seats ASAP, and there's probably, you know, very little kind of planning involved. And I think, you know, what we're promoting among our clients is this idea of kind of workforce planning and skills mapping, you know, so you're not kind of necessarily in that firefighting position. You're getting ahead, you know, and you're understanding what kind of skills are the businesses going to need in the next kind of 12 months, 24 months, 5 years. What kind of suggestions would you have for businesses or HR leaders, you know, kind of to start that process, or how would they begin, you know, that kind of skills mapping process?
It's a 3-step approach is what I would recommend. The first is understand the cost of the skills gap to your company. We have just recently launched the skills gap cost calculator, which enables an SME or an enterprise to input key data points and produce a report. And that report will help open the discussion internally, because you might be very surprised at the actual amount that the skills gap is costing, not just from a recruitment perspective, but from education and overall business performance. The second is knowing what the skills gap is. So I spoke recently at an IBEC event. And in fact, there's a newsletter out this week all talking about skills gap. Many businesses admit that they know they have a skills gap. So some companies will work with the CEO. They'll tell us the skills gap's a huge problem. And the next question you ask is, what are your skills gaps? I don't know. And that can happen because they're reliant on HR tech systems that take in the CV at the point of entry, but they're not mapping the skills acquired while in the workplace. Even, let's face it, as employees, we all are learning in and outside.
Upskilling. Informally.
Informally. So not having a way of capturing that. So bringing in the skills passport. We're working on lots of European projects that are now leveraging the skills passport, where you give an employee a skills passport as a way of understanding their skills gap. So it starts with the point in time, which is their CV and their current job. And then they highlight either where they want to be in the short term or the long term, and they get a gap analysis. So imagine you are that mid-40s-year-old and you're thinking, well, what's my gap? Now, all of a sudden, it will serve you up with a gap. And furthermore, if you already have a license with the likes of Coursera or LinkedIn, we can run a skills mapping algorithm over those courses, so that now in my skills passport, that's an app on my phone, I'm served up the learning courses that fill my gap. And then the final element is, if you really, really want to sort of reward learning within your business, you can activate a skills first marketplace within your business where people, as they acquire new skills and they want to be considered for either a promotion up or transfer into another department, they can be discovered anonymously. So you're rewarding the acquisition of new skills, and you're encouraging this diverse, inclusive skills mobility within your business. And the outcome for businesses that we work with is just lower attrition. I mean, you save money without a shadow of a doubt, but the key thing is people are not leaving, they're staying, because you're investing in them and you're opening up doors within the business in an inclusive way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's brilliant. And I think that's highly motivating, isn't it, for employees, if they know that, you know, if they're upskilling, then they've got a much greater opportunity for promotion and mobility within the organization. Can I just ask about tasks for a second, and this idea of skills versus tasks? You know, what are your thoughts around that? You know, is there something, you know, do we need to kind of include tasks in the language when we talk about this? Because if jobs are made up by tasks as opposed to skills, is it easier to talk about tasks versus skills? And can sometimes, you know, can people be confused sometimes in the language around skills? Because, you know, how do we know kind of exactly what skills we need to do a certain job? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts around that?
It's a mammoth question, because you are essentially taking what is fundamentally a core problem currently. If you think about the process of looking for a job, we go on the big job platforms that have used the same type of taxonomy for a long time, and you're trying to connect it then with CVs and skills. And now this is the next evolution. What we're saying is, well, actually jobs are made up of tasks, and within those tasks, there's skills and there's competencies. And how, and then we all describe things differently. You might say, I'm hiring a sales director. I might say we need an inside sales manager, but we mean the same thing.
Yeah.
So with all these variables, because the human is involved, I believe the only way to crack it is through the common language and education. So the common language being this skills taxonomy that encompasses your tasks. Like, there's a piece of work we're doing for a company at the moment that are ahead of the curve with this. They've realized task-based jobs are coming, even to the point of like having a lot of contractors rather than employees. And we're mapping out at the moment against our skills AI, so that big engine of skills, connecting it into the tasks, so that we're guiding the internal hiring managers, the educators, as to the correlation. But that has to be done by technology. It is mission impossible to expect a recruiter to effectively do that without bias. And the second piece is the education. So every few weeks we hold a skills first webinar, a masterclass, and it's for business leaders and HR leaders to come in. It's a free event, and it's 60 minutes where we talk about the framework to put into your organization. And the more you can get within the business, being educated as to what is a skills first framework and a core skills first system, the easier it gets. Because it's like years ago, do you remember we started using personality assessments in recruitment?
Yes, yeah.
And it went from like, no, that person doesn't have 4 years experience, to, oh, hold on, they've the same personality profile as the leader that we promoted last year. Let's bring them through. We will go through that same, but you need to be championing it, and you need to be educating people like we did with the personality assessments to get to that point.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. In terms of then, moving to kind of I know I said we'd finish kind of in 20-25 minutes, Vanessa, so I'm just conscious of time. But if we could maybe finish up by talking around, you know, the skills gap, and what are your thoughts around maybe how we can close that skills gap? Would you have any kind of thoughts as we wrap up?
It depends on who the audience is. You know, if I'm speaking to educators, obviously I will be saying very different words. But if the audience today, if you are a HR leader in an SME or corporate or enterprise, I believe that you are in a pivotal position to evangelize sales within your business. And I do see the future where there are chief skills officers or heads of skills, with the role being the conduit between recruitment and learning. And I think the only way a business can truly own the skills asset of the business and the gap is to put a framework in place and actively invest, but map the progress. So I talked a little bit earlier on about within our skills suite, we have the skills passport, we have the skills first matching. The third element is skills mapping. And this is where we visualize the skills assets of your business in real time. So imagine you are an Irish-based business and you have your team all across Ireland. Now you have a map of Ireland that's dynamically updating, showing the geolocations of your workforce, the skills clusters that they have, and then what hiring managers are saying they need and the gaps. So gone are the days where you'll just buy a license to 1,000 courses and hope the employees figure it out. You will be so strategic. You will know, and you'll know ahead of it. You'll forecast the skills needed in 18 months' time. So you'll already be either investing if the courses exist, or we're setting up academies in Europe at the moment. So we have one Gen AI Skills Academy. We have another one, Reskill for Net Zero Skills Academy. So we're doing it in partnership with other countries where you can partner with your local universities and say, look, we've used these tools. We have a strategy. We know we're going to need these courses. We want to do micro-credentials. We don't want 1, 2, 3, 4-year degrees. We need them to be short, and we need to know what is the skills output from our workers taking that course, and then making sure the passport is auto-updating all of those skills. So the job of the recruiter within your business or the hiring manager is so straightforward. They shouldn't even have to screen the skills. The platform should say to them, 97% match, 87% match. And when in your organization, if people start getting promoted based on skills acquisition and, having that self-motivation to do lifelong learning, it will transform your business. Yeah. Skills gaps will just be a thing of the past.
Yeah, no, 100%. Once people see it happening around them, for sure. And it sounds like from what you're saying earlier that maybe the sooner we get humans out of the equation, the better. We can all start, having one uniform taxonomy that we can all use, right? And in terms of then, it just on the skills and the skills competency, the level of skills, is there any thoughts around how we can measure those skills? Because you and I could say we have the same skill on a platform, but obviously you could be advanced and I could be beginner. So is there any thoughts around how that can be measured?
Absolutely. We are working on another company that are in hospitality, and the skills range within hospitality can be, well, you can make a bed, after guests have left, or you can run a hotel chain and do the marketing. And so again, if you look at where we are today with many roles, we're again still basing it on the CV and what people tell us and how reference checks fare out. But on this particular point, the minute a skills passport is created, from that point onwards, you are assessing the level. So you can have the passport sort of have a level of wherever someone has completed their course. And that means that you are very clear on not just the skills acquired, but the level of those skills. So it depends on what the organization is looking for and the nuances of it. Like other areas where it can be quite challenging are the likes of retail, the skills level, and then how that correlates. One element we spent a long time building was ensuring we could support transferable skills, because I think, let's face it, when we were all in college, we sort of fell into college at a very young age. And what do they say? Something like 70% of us are not happy in what we do.
Okay, well, it's not surprising. You make the decision when you're 17, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, and then you're on a path. But actually, what excites me now is that, and this is going back to the humans, like, I think that you have the ability to be happy again, because the pathways that are opening up, if you've convinced yourself that you should just be on one path, it's a mistake. And, to really understand that gap, And we do have something exciting launching in a few months. It will be a passport for people, because I think a lot of people are coming up with this question of what gaps and what options do I have, and what's my worth in terms of skill stack, and what learning should I take, and lots and lots of questions. But I think it's a really exciting time for people to navigate pathways that will bring fulfilling careers or contract work or tasks.
Brilliant. I think that's a great way to sign off. So on a really positive note, you painted a really positive picture there, Vanessa, of the opportunities that are out there for people to have multiple really kind of rewarding careers and opportunities. I just want to let you finish by telling people where they can sign up for the Skills First workshop you're running.
Yes, yeah, very welcome. We run them regularly. So if you go to Abodoo, ABODOO.com, on there, just scroll down on the homepage. There's a little video about what we do, and you can sign up straight away for a Skills First Masterclass. Do register even if you can't make the live event, because we'll send you the recording. And also you'll see at the top bar the calculator. So if you are thinking, do you know what, I want to work out what the skills gap is costing me to really just have this conversation internally, go ahead and click the link. And happy to have a conversation, any of the team as well. If you're at the point of wanting a skills first strategy, or you're ahead and you're like, we need some skills tools, then obviously happy to talk to.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, look, thanks so much, Vanessa. I really enjoyed that chat on our skills series. So it was very interesting talking to you today. And thanks everyone for listening. Please subscribe on www.rentorecruiter.com for our resources and more information about what we do. So thanks so much, Vanessa. And we'll keep in touch.